So today we've got a big and very important question coming from Jeff about porn use and self-loathing. I think what he wrote here really articulates a common and seriously destructive problem so well. So here's what he says. Hey Mark, I hope this email finds you and your crew doing well. I've been addicted to porn since I was 18. However, it wasn't until I turned 35 and the years following, that he'll be 39 this year, that the root cause of my porn issue is a deep feeling of being unloved, unworthy of my desires, and feeling unlovable. It's so deep as to the point of feeling that I either don't belong around people or that they are just trying to get something from me, because those two modus operandi are what my home life revolved entirely around. So like that he doesn't belong or that they're trying to get something from him. And I was used and abused by my family, the school system, and even my peers. The feeling of abandonment and being cast off extends even to God himself, feeling as though he doesn't even want me. So now, when I try to do things I know are for my own good, I hear repeated screaming in my head telling me how horrible and awful I am. Sometimes it sounds like my stepdad or my mother. Other times it sounds like something else entirely. And deep beneath this, I see a man whose shadow I stand in, a man I feel I am not worthy of being, a builder, a creator, an architect. And when I try to be this man by fixing my pain points, the voice of abuse returns and stings as a lash against my efforts. It's to the point where even when I do fix things, there's still a lingering bitterness and anger. I should have been this man 20 years ago. It's not like it matters now because my life was still wasted thanks to rotten, evil people. I'm still not good enough. And it leads me into comparison traps and dark, bitter thoughts. The hate, the loneliness, and the feelings of being worthless always come back, no matter how I try to fix them. Therapy, journaling, nothing ever seems to truly solve it. I've quit porn for as long as 5 months, and still this comes back, lingering, waiting to strike. I'm at a loss of what to do. The culmination of the narratives I have consumed and internalized are now eating me alive. Any advice you have would help. Okay, well, Jeff, first of all, thank you for your question. I understand the pain you're in, and I think many guys can relate to this. Even if maybe not to the same degree, I think a lot of guys generally struggle with feelings of inadequacy, especially stuff that's, rooted in their development when they were young. It's a very common thing. In fact, if you were to say, all of this in one of my Frontline Man calls, every single guy in there would be able to diagnose your issue. If I asked them, they said, he's got a dignity issue, and then nod understandingly. Because basically dignity is about how you perceive your own worth, and these kinds of issues are really the deepest and most pervasive problems that I help men solve. Because fundamentally, when you don't feel good enough, okay, well then you want to escape yourself. Or in some ways you want to punish yourself. And so you use porn and stuff like that as a way to run away from this fundamental, not feeling good enough sort of sensation inside of you. And I would say every guy, pretty much, even well-adjusted guys who generally have a sense of confidence, eventually come to the understanding that maintaining a strong sense of connection to their dignity, to their inherent worth, is the most critical component of personal and spiritual development. Let's talk about this, because I think a broader framework for understanding what's going on here is going to help you figure out what to do next. So we'll take like a developmental psychology approach and go back to childhood and what I believe happens to most people. Basically, I want to spell out the levels of wounding that people can go through, and then we'll talk about what we can do about this. When a baby is in utero, in the womb, they're just chilling. They're just feeling connected. And I think almost at a default sense, they're feeling loved by their mother because they're feeling nourished by her body. They're warm, they're safe, all this kind of stuff, right? And then they're born. I would say that all babies are sincerely dignified, meaning they believe they deserve to be loved. They believe that they are good. They pop out and they cry, expecting to get taken care of. And it's not an entitlement. It's just like, hey, I'm good and something bad's happening. Someone help me, right? Someone give me the love that I need. Now, as this baby grows and matures, pretty much everyone gets this fundamental sense of lovability challenged. Okay. The question is to what degree is that sense of dignity challenged, and that kind of determines how wounded we end up, through our developmental process. And so the way I say it, there's like 3 degrees of wounding, and each degree is kind of like its own spectrum. Like you could have a shallow first degree or a deep first degree or whatever, but generally these are like the big kind of distinctions. Okay, the first degree of wounding is basically the internalization of the narrative that I'm not unconditionally dignified, I'm only conditionally dignified, meaning like I'm only good and lovable if I meet the right conditions. So how does this come about? Well, it could come about even with very loving parents and a generally idyllic upbringing. But what you'll find is that, some people treat me better if I do X, Y, Z, and then other times they reject me, if I'm naughty or I misbehave. So when you're young, you can't really tell the difference. If you're being like a silly little kid and you make a mistake and then dad yells at you, you get a jolt. It's like, wait, what? You don't just want to give me hugs and kisses? It's like, there's like this thing that pops up. Even if dad was right to yell at you, your young mind has trouble processing that. And you realize that there is a cause and effect with how people treat you. And the wounding occurs when you believe that the love will be taken away. And so, deeper into the first degree wounding will be like the parents who will, shower you with praise if you get good grades, and then they'll get mad at you and punish you and like feel like they withdraw their love from you when you get bad grades. Okay. It could also just be your peers, for example. If you wear the cool clothes, they like you. If you, wear the lame clothes, they make fun of you. A lot of people are going to get this kind of wounding because it's just generally natural in a lot of ways. And it's just coming to wrap our head around the conditional nature of our world, right? And the wound really occurs when we tie that conditional nature to our sense of worth, right? We start to associate our worth with our status. And so we feel like, if my status goes up, I'm more lovable. If my status goes down, I'm not lovable, right? And the dignified perspective says, actually my worth and my status are separate. There's a separation, and this first degree of wounding, it shatters that separation, and it says kind of like our worth and our status are the same thing, right? So it's like my worth is this constant roller coaster ride, but if I play the game right and I can earn enough points, then I can win. And then so like moving forward in a life like this means that you're kind of like this black hole, constantly having to score enough points to, get the love of the people around you. But the problem is it's always kind of inauthentic. You can never get enough points. You can never really feel fully secure in it because you can't control everything in your life. That's kind of like the first degree, very, very common. Now, the second degree of wounding is also relatively common, but it hits a little bit deeper. So in the second degree, instead of feeling like your worth is conditional, you feel like it's unconditionally bad. Basically, it's like, I am unconditionally bad and fundamentally unlovable. So it's kind of like the opposite of a dignified perspective. The dignified perspective says, hey, I'm fundamentally good, worthy of love. The second degree wounded person says like, nope, I'm fundamentally bad, and there's nothing I can do to get better. And this usually occurs under like severe abuse or, intense rejection from those around you. And it sounds like that's what you had with your parents, maybe even your peers and even the school system. And so what's going on there is that there's kind of like an aggressive assault on your worth, where even if you're trying to play the game, even if you try to score the points, you still get rejected. Example would be like an alcoholic parent, where it's like you try really hard to be what they like, what they're happy. You try and follow the rules they set out. They come home and they beat your ass anyway. It's like, what the fuck? It's like the young mind can't process that, and they just start to think, well, shit, maybe I just suck. Maybe I just suck because that's what they keep telling me. They keep, the verbal abuse and all this other kind of stuff, just tearing you down and making you feel like you don't have any worth, even if you do good, right? And that's one of the big things is like these people will try to play the game. They'll try and like bring home the good grades or whatever, or, make the other person happy, but, they just keep getting rejected. And when that narrative of rejection gets internalized, a deep wounding starts to occur there. And it sounds like this is probably what you're dealing with. And just to round out the understanding of these wounds, I do believe there's also a third degree. And this is where you get so damaged that you don't even believe love exists. Okay. Like, and this could either be the result of like extreme abuse, or just repeatedly horrible actions taken on your own, intentions. Okay. Like, these are the people like that are so wounded that if they were to spend some time with a psychiatrist, they would usually walk away with some very severe sounding diagnosis, and sometimes need to be put in special facilities. Okay. And you're definitely not on this level because, those kind of people don't even care about these sorts of questions, and I'm not equipped to help them anyway. But anyway, as I said, I think you're dealing with this second degree of wounding. You've got a fundamental sense of inadequacy that you can't seem to shake even when you're making progress, right? If you only had that first degree of wounding, well, then you would be feeling better when you're doing better, right? But for you, even if you're doing good, I still suck. And you still got that voice in your head. And like I said, this isn't completely uncommon. Like, there's a lot of people who struggle with this. Now, the question comes to, how are we actually going to solve this issue? All right. Well, luckily, the first 2 degrees, they can be solved. Okay. Like, they are 100% healable. Third degree, outside of very intensive, maybe potential therapy, I don't even know if it can go that way. More like in the realm of like, spiritual intervention. It's kind of like, you can almost equate it to like degrees of burning. Like, if you got your arm burned off, well, you're not going to grow your arm back, right? So once you reach level 3, you're really, out of luck. But level 1 and 2, we can absolutely heal these things. So I want to offer you some hope there. How are we going to do this? Well, for both first and second degree wounds, the general strategy is the same. We have to basically give ourselves the love that we were denied, right? It's like those denials, those rejections, they kind of like took a little chunk out of us, took a little chunk out of our sense of self-worth. And what we have to do is we have to find those holes and we have to fill them with love, right? So it's like the denial of love created a hole. So the application of love is what's going to fill it. Now, people with first degree wounding, which is, most people, they can do this rather gently. They can just be consistent and pretty much just practice giving themselves love, right? Like, when they're challenged, like, do good things, and not doing it from a place of trying to earn their worth, but trying to do it from a place of genuine gift and care. So it's like, instead of going to the gym feeling like, I have to get jacked or else I suck, they practice going to the gym from, hey, I'm good, and since I'm good, I want to reflect that in my body. I want to give myself the gift of fitness and health, and learning how to move from that sort of radiant motivation. In your case, though, I think it goes a bit deeper than that. And so when we're dealing with a second degree wound, we've got to basically match the intensity of the wounding experience itself. When you're dealing with a second degree wound, there was a very aggressive assault on your sense of self. And in some cases, that's literal, right? Like, if you were beaten by your parents, or they would just tear into you with like, extreme venom, like trying to tear you down. Okay. That was like an assault. Okay. And so there needs to be a same level of intensity and combative energy, but from the loving side. Okay. It's like, you need to go to war for your sense of self. Right? You got to go to war with that evil voice in your head that just wants to tear you down. So here's the starting point. All right. You have to decide on like a philosophical, like existential level, that you have dignity, that you have an unconditional worth that renders you worthy of love, at the very least, your love and the love of God. Okay. You have to decide that that is true, just as a matter of choice, just as a pure act of will. You have to decide to believe this, not for some logical reason, although there are logical justifications that, I can give, and I could go into that if that's stuff you guys are interested in hearing, or you can just watch some of my other videos, just search my channel for dignity. But you have to decide it. And you don't just decide it like gently, okay? You have to decide this like a warrior drawing a line in the sand. And when that voice comes to tell you you suck, you've got to basically be like, oh, you want to fight? Get the fuck out of here, right? Like, you got to go to war with this. You have to ignite that fighter energy inside of you, because what you've got is this pattern of aggression that was put into you when you were young, and that pattern is coming up again. And if you just try and be all gentle and kumbaya with it, that aggressive pattern that's been internalized, it's just going to come through and just slice that little hippie's head off, right? Okay, so it's like, you can't do that. You got to be fully armored up, ready to rumble. And you didn't mention, you mentioned God a little bit. And so I don't know if you're Christian or what your spiritual affiliation is, but what I believe is most useful here is really adopting the spiritual warfare attitude found within the Christian tradition. Okay, like the idea of spiritual warfare is a very big idea in Christianity, and that is the posture that you want to be taking. And I would highly recommend that you explore that. I've even got some videos around that as well. But spiritual warfare is going to be critical, because what you're fighting with here is really like I believe that when we're dealing with massive like world and existentially shaping narratives, you're dealing with the level of the spirit. You're dealing with things of maximal meaning and your fundamental perception of reality. And so like you're dealing with big forces, and you want to try and get as much, support as you can in that realm. That's the fundamental key. Deciding to go to war against despair, against loathing, against the doubt in God. That was one of the things you mentioned, is this idea that God doesn't love you, that God's rejecting you. And I would say all of that is just evil bullshit. It's just evil bullshit that's been festering inside of you, and you need to take a stand against it. Now, from a spiritual perspective, you can't stand against it on your own. You want grace, you want support, you want some stronger spiritual weaponry in your arsenal for this. At the end of the day, it's going to be a fight. That's kind of like the high level thing. And then it becomes, well, how do I actually practice this? What do I actually do? And so you need to know, like, what are the practices where I'm going to be implementing this stuff? And that's really what, I built the Frontline Man program around. It's like a full system. It's like, all right, follow XYZ step, here are the tools. Here's how you apply them. But they are basically your acts of aggression against this darkness inside of you. It's like it gives you a clear set of steps and opportunities to generate love, to take acts of love and fill in those holes inside of you. And that's what you need. You just need a clear set of things to do. And it's just about living a good life while thinking the right thoughts and doing the right things inside your heart. Because it sounds like you can get yourself to take the actions, but there's something disconnected in the psychological and in game of the heart. It would be about following like a method like that, or whatever system you would like to follow, but doing it from that spirit of, aggressive assertiveness of your dignity. And when you start fighting for yourself, basically like what you're doing is you're giving yourself what you wish you had when you were a kid. Because when your parents were digging into you, or your peers were tearing you down, etc., man, wouldn't it have been great if someone stepped in and defended you and pulled you up, right? That's what you got to be. It's kind of like we're rescuing your inner child that's still held captive back in all that bullshit that you went through when you were young. It's like you've got to become the hero. With God's grace, you've got to become that force of goodness in your life. And if you would like to start dipping your toes in my methodology for how to do this, I would definitely recommend that you check out my Metascript method guide. Okay, in it, I teach you one of the core components of my full system called the Metascript method, which is just a simple act of self-love that you use to pre-program yourself. Okay, and you can use this obviously around things like quitting porn, which is the way I teach it in this guide. But really, you can also apply it to anything else. You could apply it to any other situation where you find yourself falling into inadequacy, you find yourself losing that spiritual warfare mentality, whatever. And it's just a way to build up the repetitions that will eventually fill up these little holes inside of you, or big holes inside of you, and get you starting to feel truly aligned, truly connected to your own sense of worth. Because once you feel that you're in your own team and that you got God on your team, you've got something that you can really build from. So if you want that guide, you just click the link in the description and you can get it and learn the technique very, very quickly. And so if anyone else has this similar issues, I recommend you doing the same thing. That's pretty much what I have for you here today. Hopefully this was useful. If you guys got any comments or thoughts, drop them below. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you've got questions of your own, make sure you send them to podcast@frontlineman.com. I'm really loving doing these Q&A videos. Got a lot of great questions. So looking forward to hearing from you. Ooh, yeah. See you all in the next one.